back to the B-Movie Rollout. Today we're going to break from the usual formula and talk about some retro TV. I've referenced 80s cop show Miami Vice in previous episodes, but now we're going to dive in for a full retrospective. Why? Because I believe that Miami Vice is one of the greatest action drama series of all time. Nobody denies that this show had a tremendous impact on contemporary police dramas, as well as the fashion and style of the entire 1980s. And its influence is still around today. Look at these album covers. Anytime you see this font in these colors, you know someone was tuning into this show at one time or another.
Hey, but you know what, man? You managed to keep it masculine, but yet you got a pink shirt.
That's my Miami Vice crocodile tubs.
Yeah!
Everybody knows this show was cool, but I'm afraid people may have forgotten why. For those of us who weren't there, our initial experience with Miami Vice was probably VH1 ragging on it.
One invented it, but one of them invented a suit with a t-shirt under it, okay?
Since most of my audience probably has no first-hand experience with this show, today's episode will be my best effort advocating a change in that. I'm going to introduce you to some of my favorite episodes, if only to clue you in on where to start if you're considering giving this show a chance. So here are my top 10 favorite episodes of Miami Vice. Roll it! Number 10.
This part is not acting, what we're doing right now. You might be, but we're just selling the film now.
Did you know Bruce Willis used to be a good actor? Believe it or not, there was a time when this man took himself quite seriously and delivered engaging performances.
Hey, what you doing, man?
Just checking. Just checking.
This is an early episode from the show, and it stands out for two reasons. One is Bruce Willis.
Miami Vice.
You're a cop?
Willis plays a volatile arms dealer who abuses his wife. He absolutely steals the show, even though he was still a young actor himself. When he's finally apprehended, the FBI orders his release, which is the second reason this episode is great. This ending is pretty bleak. This is the point where we saw that this show was different. There wasn't going to be a happy ending every week. Miami Vice was gritty and serious, and No Exit was one of the first, and best, episodes that drove this point home.
Rita!
You're letting him go!
Rita?
No!
Number 9. I presume most of the viewers of this show are familiar with the Spoony One and his semi-annual review series, Rubberary, which celebrates B-movie actor Reb Brown. As it turns out, Brown guest starred in a Season 3 episode of Miami Vice, so the Spoony Experiment reviewed the entire episode.
They let Reb Brown be Reb Brown. The script sucked. They knew it sucked. It's called Viking Bikers from Hell, for Christ's sakes. So you get Reb Brown, you give him a shitload of guns, and you turn him loose with a bunch of stuntmen and pyro guys near a bunch of abandoned buildings and junker cars. And boom! Literally, you got a great action episode. And Miami Vice, you got it.
And I absolutely recommend that review for a full recap of the episode. I'm including it on this list for basically one reason. This is a fantastic action episode. Now, I'm not the super Reb Brown fan that the Spoony One is, but he does take this episode to the next level. While the script may be a little weak, the chases, gunfights, and Reb Brown screaming more than make up for it. Miami Vice might have been known for being dark and gritty, but this episode is just plain fun. By the way, Spoony, I found Frank Stallone. Number 8. Miami Vice helped Eagles frontman Glenn Frey land 2 hip-hop singles. The first coming from the episode with the same name, Smuggler's Blues, in which Frey actually guest stars, as himself after those hits left the pop charts. Frey was one of many rock stars to cameo in this show, and he isn't half bad.
I always like to take a goodbye look at America. Just in case it's my last.
Anytime Crockett and Tubbs left Miami, the show usually gave us something special. This is also a great action episode, and the script is well done with plenty of twists. Crockett and Tubbs partner with Fry to hunt down a leak within the DEA. The episode concludes with a tense bomb defusing and a somber reminder that money can corrupt just about anybody.
Lieutenant Jones.
The only weak point is the editing, as this was an early episode and they were still working out the kinks. Otherwise, Smuggler's Blues is a good episode with a great soundtrack. Definitely worth checking out. Number 7.
When the rat race gets rough, there's always someone to think you're the big, big cheese. You
The only musician who had closer ties to Miami Vice than Glenn Fry was Phil Collins. His songs have been used again and again throughout the series, so it seemed only appropriate that he be given a rather large guest star role in an episode called Phil the Shill, where he plays a fast-talking scam artist. And like Bruce Willis and Reb Brown, he just steals the show. He plays a great hustler, and the soundtrack's good to boot. So this one has a lot of rewatch value for me.
Because you are going to offer me immunity if I help you put Sarah and Rivers in the bag. Maybe even burn Tyrell and her mob and all.
You've been reading ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to do my little bit for law and order.
Although the show is primarily a drama, this episode proved that the series could present some humor as well. Number 6.
But when I get home at night, I like being with a lady that I really like.
Season 4 of Miami Vice was not great. By that point, all of the original writers were gone, as was executive producer Michael Mann. Dick Wolf tried to keep the series upright, but as the episodes went on, the show lacked direction and occasionally wandered into the surreal.
I feel good. I do that I would. I feel good. I do that I would.
Fortunately, as he later proved with Law & Order, Dick Wolf was very good at producing television dealing with current events. A particularly good example of this is episode 2 of season 4, which deals with televangelists.
It's one of the most indelible images of the last decade, as Real TV looks back at Jim Baker, a preacher once worth millions. The most successful televangelist of his day, carried off to prison without a prayer.
In the late 80s, TV evangelists were being exposed again and again for being both frauds and fanatics, so this episode was very timely. Crockett and Tubbs arrest a high-profile reverend's wife on drug charges, and in response, a member of the reverend's church falsely accuses Tubbs of rape.
Oh, hell, Rico, they got nothing. They're fishing.
Yeah, they got a bruised teenager pointing a finger at a black off-duty cop. Says I wanted to know her in the biblical way.
Yeah, this is not a joke episode. While it appears obvious that the Reverend Proverb is a villain, it turns out he has nothing to do with the rape charge, which was actually orchestrated by a competitor of his. Although the ending is a little hokey, this episode features some fantastic twists and turns while tackling a number of social issues. Plus, the episode has a cool soundtrack with Satellite by the Hooters, and hey, check it out, there's Ben Stiller. Also, I must point out that Brian Dennehy is stellar in this role. One of Miami Vice's greatest strengths was its ability to bring in high-profile guest stars.
Proverb is telling you right here, right now, and right up front that I'm taking all that money for myself.
Number 5.
Beat it, old man.
That's Willie Nelson there. He was being called an old man all the way back in 1986. That was 30 years ago! All joking aside, this is another great action episode. Willie Nelson plays a badass Texas Ranger long before Chuck Norris turned that concept into a joke. Willie Nelson has great chemistry with the cast, and the action is well done. It's a simple concept, really. Have your weekly heroes team up with an old-school badass to fight some drug dealers. What could go wrong? Add in the painfully obvious selection of Bon Jovi's Wanted Dead or Alive, alongside a Steve Buscemi cameo, and you've got some great TV. Number 4. Although an improvement over Season 4, the final season of Miami Vice was just not able to recapture the magic of the early years. If Season 1 was Phil Collins, then Season 5 would be Mike and the Mechanics, if you know what I mean. It's still good, though. Season 5 tackled some very serious issues, and hey, look, there's John P. Ryan!
You glorify death and violence for profit! You're worse than she is!
Why isn't John P. Ryan on this list? Well, because I'm talking about good episodes, not hilariously bad ones. Anyway, the writers knew this would be the last season of the show, so they went absolutely all out for the finale.
I don't make policy, I enforce it.
And cover it up when it goes wrong.
That's right. And I got carte blanche, babe. I could shoot you right now. Easy. Pin it on Bourbon. No one's ever gonna ask any questions.
Freefall is amazing. The stakes are higher, the music is better, and the episode is longer. It's basically a full-length movie. Crockett and Tubbs smuggle a corrupt dictator out of Latin America, and in the process, they uncover a massive federal conspiracy that concludes with them having a standoff with the FBI. The conclusion is incredibly cynical, yet still heartwarming as Crockett and Tubbs go their separate ways, while music plays over scenes from classic episodes. TV shows rarely get satisfying conclusions, but this one is just about perfect. Number 3. Miami Vice has one of the greatest pilots of all time. It succeeds in not only introducing us to its characters, but in setting the tone for the series itself, which isn't easy, as most early episodes of a TV show can be awkward or unfocused, as the series attempts to figure itself out. Vice knew what it was from the start. It was a gritty, stylized cop drama that used the music of its era to set the stage. We see this as the opening scene takes us to early 80s New York by blasting some classic Stones, and then later to the iconic In the Air Tonight driving scene, to a different scene where Tubbs confronts the man who murdered his brother. This scene manages to make a wimpy song like All Night Long appear tense and ominous. It's very cinematic. I mean, the whole thing looks like a movie. And to the credit of the cast, nobody appears nervous or unsteady in their new roles, especially stars Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas, who are absolutely superb together. If you've never seen the show, this is definitely the episode to start with. Number 2. If there's anything in the series as iconic as Crockett and Tubbs' late-night drive set to In the Air Tonight, it would be the You Belong to the City theme set in the Season 2 premiere, Prodigal Son, in which Crockett and Tubbs return to New York to pursue a vicious drug lord. This episode is widely considered to be the best of the series for a number of reasons. For starters, there's a lot of great music, like more than usual. Secondly, there's some fantastic guest stars. Pam Grier, Penn Jillette, Luis Guzman, and even Gene Simmons are all quite good. Everything is shot like a film here. Ultimately, this episode is great because it is where we see that Johnson and Thomas have truly come into their own as Crockett and Tubbs. The core of this show is the partnership of these two guys. And it is a partnership. Don Johnson's Hollywood career might have eclipsed Thomas's, but in the context of this show, these men were equal partners with equal time, and it works great. This is some of the best television of its entire era.
But you're dirty, Ace. And I'm patient.
Miami Vice eventually had over 100 episodes under its belt, so naturally there were some weak points. If you're new to the show and looking to avoid those weak spots, today's mini top 3 will give you a heads up on what to look out for. Number 3. Sports episodes. I'm not kidding. There's a weird phenomenon where episodes involving sports or athletics are just terrible. The acting is often atrocious, and the stories are overly convoluted. There's an episode involving race cars that's particularly awful. What's annoying is that the biggest main character death happens in one of these, which is really too bad. Simply put, if sports are in the summary, I would pass on that episode. Number 2. Any episode where Crockett or Tubbs is not the main character. There's a handful of episodes that give some supporting cast members their moment in the sun, and almost none of them are up to it. One of my biggest criticisms of this show is that it could just not write for women, so Trudy and Gina episodes are especially weak. Zwitek is probably the most fun of the backing cast, but he looks way in over his head whenever he's front and center. Castile, played by noted actor Edward James Olmos, has a couple of tolerable episodes if you're a fan, I guess. But I grew tired of his one-note character pretty quick. He's quiet. We get it. Honestly, it's really a compliment to Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas. These two guys were absolutely indispensable for the success of their show, and they established the standard for 80s cool. Number 1. The episodes with Sheena Easton as Sonny Crockett's wife.
I got you, babe? No wonder her career's in the toilet.
This is great.
I'm guessing the writers were forced to include a multi-episode love story for Don Johnson, because Sheena Easton's character is written in a particularly rushed and lazy manner. Her character has no personality, the couple shares absolutely no chemistry, and frankly, Easton was not up to the job as an actress. For those of you who were there, was Sheena Easton like a thing in the 80s? Because I just don't get it. For Your Eyes Only wasn't that great of a song. The only good thing from this arc is that they eventually kill her off, so we get this scene.
I sure as hell know the same way you couldn't let an innocent man be executed, that you can't shoot an unarmed man.
Wrong.
Alright, back to the main list. Now, I actually believe that Prodigal Son is the best episode of Miami Vice, but I do have one more that I really consider to be my favorite. Let's take a look. Number 1. For starters, it opens with the tubes. Well, you can't go wrong with the tubes. 2, it has an amazing guest appearance from someone you might not expect. Yeah, that's Ed O'Neill from Married with Children.
Well, take Miami Vice, the DeLorean, Ebony and Ivory.
That was the 80s.
Don't you ever interfere with me again!
Ed O'Neill is great in this, but what actually sold me on the episode was the story. Ed O'Neill plays an undercover FBI agent who gets so involved in the crime ring he's trying to bust that he cuts off contact with his supervisors, who then think he's actually gone over to the other side. When confronted with this, he admits that while he is still trying to make the bust, the undercover lifestyle is exhilarating, and it's difficult to keep one's values straight. Crockett deeply sympathizes with this because this is basically what the entire show is all about. The insane challenges of undercover police work and its effect on the men and women who do it. Another episode that was critically acclaimed, called Out Where the Buses Don't Run, also speaks to this. Anyway, in the end, O'Neill finds his redemption, but the conclusion is still tragic. It features everything that's great about Miami Vice. What's crazy here is that this is Season 1, Episode 2. It was Brothers Keeper that introduced me to Vice, but Heart of Darkness that sold me on it. While I do believe that Prodigal Son is the best Miami Vice has to offer, this is what I always find myself rewatching. And there you have it. 10 fantastic episodes. So what do you think?
Listen, you've been watching way too much Miami Vice.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. So now it's your turn. Give Miami Vice a shot. If you're a fan of anything I've covered before on this show, then you're bound to find something you like. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.
It's time for the hippest, newest, best-dressed detective show on television, Miami Mice.
Yeah, there are palm trees out there.